everyone, this is Lily of the Core Knights, also known as Toph. Welcome to the Core Talk.
Hey guys, it's Tom here, also known as Detective, part of the Core Knights main fight team.
Main fight team. It just gets more epic every time. What's up, guys? It's your boy Isaac, back lead on the product development and creative team.
What's up, everyone? This is Corey, aka Mustang Berserker. I'm the tournament organizer of BattleCore, and I'm part of the main fight team.
I mean, yeah, I'm part of the main fight team too.
What's going on, guys? This is John, also known as Megalonica. I'm part of the main fight team, and I am the Grandmaster Judge for BattleCore.
Yes, I started something.
We're just going right with the train.
The main fight team. I was like, all right, you
Main
did it.
fight team, let's go.
I got all four of them.
All right, everyone. Today we have a very interesting topic today.
Yes, sir.
And I feel like this is going to stir up a little bit of chaos on this podcast. So prepare yourself for it.
Oh, dear Lord. All right, so guys, here we're going to talk about essentially deck building. All right, I feel as if this is a very good topic to kind of go about and just diverse yourself into, because deck building,
Very good.
it's essential. It's essential. You have to build a deck to play a TCG, right? I mean, what are you going to play cards with no cards? What kind of card games? No cards. What are you? Imagination? This ain't card.
Whether you're casual, whether you're competitive, that's one of your main equipment.
We're not talking about those online ones.
Or
But look,
Keyforge.
You
just buy it.
That's not a no. That's not a real game. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Well.
That's not a real game. Keyboard, screw that.
You're not a real boy.
Like, bro, keep that Pinocchio out of here. All right, I'm done with that. So look, guys. So yeah, as Corey just said, it's essential because like, whether you're casual or whether you're competitive, the way you build a deck basically determines how it will flow in the midst of combat. So we're really going to dive into it. So one of the things I think about with deck building, first you got to pick a concept or like something you want to ride with, right? Some people pick up a card that's like, yo man, I like that screwing card. Like this card, mwah, want to be the ace creature. Some people's like, I want to do an idea. I want to troll people. I want to destroy all their lands and make sure they can't play the game. Yes, I'm referencing some people that may listen to that podcast. I'm looking at you, land instructors. All right? All
Or
right?
people will pick up an archetype, something that shows relevance amongst the cards because of the skills, or they'll pick up the deck and build it around a certain particular skill. That is also a thing.
So there's so much you could do to really start your deck building. So let's kind of break it down. All right. So I'm gonna start with myself and then go around the room how everyone else picks up. So I kind of go about it in two ways. All right. Sometimes I'm feeling like, hey yo, I got an idea. Right. Maybe like for a recent Gate Ruler, I'm like, I want to burn my opponents down. I don't want to say destroy them. I want to burn them down. I look, guys, if you don't know, my favorite element is fire. My favorite animal is a tiger. Tiger's first thing out, right? Fires. I like burning things. Not saying destroying them, but I like burning them. If I destroy them, cool. So recently, I just came in part of a tournament, the World Cup for Gate Ruler, right? And I decided, you know what? I'm gonna make this deck, right? I'm gonna burn my opponents down into oblivion.
Yep.
That's
exactly
just like that. That's the kind of
Man
game
just set fire to the table. I can't believe this just happened.
I love it. Because I just like burning things. That's one of the ideas. I love burning mechanics. So essentially, that's what I like to do. So I decided for this recent tournament, I picked up all the cards for Gate Ruler. And I was like, okay, what minuses their HP? What brings them down so I can either hit them hard and go with breakthrough or to get them off my board? That's what I like to start with. So sometimes I start with an idea. Sometimes though, I pick up a card that looks really nice, look kind of smacksy. You feel me? And I was like, man, I like that art. You my key spirit right now. We gonna make it like that. I'm kind of one of those two people. So I'm either idea, or I go based on the artwork of one particular card. I just make a whole deck around that card. So kind of vibe with me. Corey, what do you think? How do you start doing that? How do you think about it?
How I start building my decks is sort of like you. I kind of look at what is available to me, whether it's this a particular set that just came out, if it's like relevant or recent, because some sets can just die out. You don't even go back to them anymore. So whatever TCG it is, I just look at whatever set is recent and if it's still relevant, and I try to go back to previous sets based on whatever archetype or idea. So let's say I come up with an idea that I want to be defensive with a little bit of offense, a little bit of destruction abilities, on attack, win something like that. So I come up with an idea, then I try to find things that is relevant to that idea. What can give me protection? What can give me destruction on attack on one summon? If it's a mana type game, what can allow me to ramp up my resources? So there's a lot that goes into my thought process that I probably do a whole video about. But to sum it up, it's just making sure that I have everything available to me on the screen when I deck build. Because if everything's not available to me right there, I feel limited too, which halts my thought process. If I just focus on what's relevant in the set, I feel that I'm missing some gaps. I feel like I'm missing some pieces, and I feel like I'm constricted to what's there. So if I have an idea, I always try to go back as far as I possibly can to cards that are relevant and it can help me with the idea. The most important part about any of my deck building strategies is making sure everything flows. I don't want something to feel dead weighted. And what I mean by that is something heavily relies on a condition. That puts me in a position where I have to either wait for my opponent to respond majority of the time, or I have to wait for certain conditions to be met. Now, of course, some things you can't help, like a nexus that says when your opponent swings, you draw a card, from Battlefield. You can't help that, But when it comes to certain things that is going to happen because it's part of the game, like Mothership from Battle Spirit Saga, that is part of white, that says at the start of your opponent's attack step, you get all your cores back. That's going to happen. Even though it is a condition, it's a constant condition. That's always going to happen. And the only way for that to stop is for it to be destroyed because you can't skip any phases. So I like to make sure that all the cards work when I have them and not just work when a condition is met. And that just makes things feel unfavorable. So that's a little bit when it comes to my deck building.
Okay. John, what do you feel?
My deck build, I basically deck build around my playstyle. My playstyle is a more controlling playstyle, so I always like cards that control the opponent's actions. Floodgates. Things like, I guess things that destroy things on summon, or things that negate effects.
So you have already so you're not more so an idea. You have an established identity. And
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's how I built my deck. I'm like one of those people who are like you can find those people who are just like, oh, I like this card, so I'll put this in my deck and that in my deck and that in my deck, and has no like organized purpose.
So, sorry to cut you. Keep that thought. Just so everyone knows the difference between an idea and a thought process, we're going to explain that for you.
So I think for like an idea versus, I think not saying a thought process, more so an identity, right? So with an idea, you have a concept you're trying to bring to life, and it doesn't necessarily have to be what you favor. It's like, okay, I want to burn things. I want to take control of my opponent's units. I want to reduce their life points through maybe just draw burn.
Or I want to have a field full of armor.
Yeah.
And or a board or a deck full of wind blocking skills or core stripping.
I feel like that's an idea because you have a concept in mind and you built around it. Versus an identity because like, okay, what as a player do I enjoy? What as a player do I vibe with the most? As I said, I vibe with more burning, but I can still make an idea and still be able to pilot appropriately. Oh, let me go beat stick oriented pilot. But sometimes you run into those kind of people where they build a deck, but they necessarily can't pilot it because it's not something they enjoy. Yep. That and it's a thing. Like, hear me out, because it's a thing because you don't enjoy it, you can't pilot it properly. Because some people that like controlling decks just can't pilot a beat stick deck because they can't get into that mindset of, hey, I need to go unga bunga. They're trying to still find ways to destroy their opponent's board without combat.
And that makes sense because I can't play an aggressive style unga bunga type deck. I've tried it countless times. I'm just not that type of person. Like OTK decks from Digimon, even though it is possible for the archetype or color that I play in, I tried it. It just doesn't vibe with me. I'm either because of one of the parts about me is I have an identity also, which is a defensive style player. And because it's too far out of my pie graph on the aggressive side, it just doesn't mesh with me. My timing's
high
off.
graph.
My timing's off. My setup is wrong. Now, granted, I still learned how to increase my aggressiveness on that side, but I'm just not an aggressive style player.
So John, I want to get on you because you seem this is very interesting. You just started. You started this. This is a very good concept. Because like there's a at least at this table you can talk with us in the comments below. I think at this table as of right now, we'll get to Lily and Tom in a moment soon. I think there's a difference between an idea and an identity.
Yep.
And I feel like there's a difference between the two. And so, and also coming back to you, Corey, there was a time you built a deck that was kind of OTK. Remember Yu-Gi-Oh? The Blue Eyes, Exceed combo I taught you?
Was it? No, okay. So that
got caught.
That right there was it. Like I did play it, but you introduced it to me. It wasn't part of my original.
Oh
idea.
yeah, right. Okay, so because you didn't come to yourself, it's like that wasn't what I would normally go for.
So when it just like I was saying, how I learned how to be aggressive, I just knew that it was a skill or a talent or card combinations that I needed to progress or elevate myself. I'll say, and whether it's the person or whether it's like the deck, elevating yourself with knowledge or card combinations or skills. It helps with deck building. It's also part of the deck building.
Okay.
Things outside of deck building, such as the person itself, helps in the deck building process. Because if you lack the knowledge, you lack thereof. So when you introduce that dragon to me,
and that whole combo was sweet.
It helped in situations where my original plans didn't work, being defensive and controlling, and the reviving of the Blue Eyes White Dragon and the other combination pieces. If that didn't work, or based on what I'm fighting, I know it won't work. That strategy right there, it definitely will, or it'll put my opponent on the back foot. And that helped when it came to constructing the deck because it also changed other functions in it also.
I think it's good to be fluid when it comes to these things. And we'll get to that momentarily, how to be fluid in deck building. But I want to go back to Mr. Identity here. But he's very concept. Bro, so you have an identity, and so you naturally gravitate towards things that says no. So you're basically like the police. So like you're just like no.
Yes.
Dive into that. It's just like dive into that. I want to go more into that.
So I've always liked the game of chess.
Okay.
So to me, those cards that say no put you in check to me, and I'm finding ways to checkmate you so that I can fully flesh out my entire game plan. That's my mentality of building a deck. A more chess-like mentality. I try to predict your movements, see which one's your key card, stop your key card from moving, remove it from the board, remove it from the game, X, Y, Z.
You like just touching my stuff, huh?
So it's
and moving cards.
So it's like you're both playing a game, but as long as you're checkmating them, they have to not only play from one step behind, they have to try to keep up because every time you checkmate them, they're not just behind, they're in danger.
Yes.
So they have to not only get themselves out of danger and put themselves on a nice foundation, but they have to also get ready to prepare themselves to play the game again once they get out of those two bad situations.
Yeah, and by that time, I force my opponent to do things they don't like to do, or burn their entire hand so that they're just top decking. That's the way I approach my deck building.
I wouldn't want to play a lot of card games. Line Yu-Gi-Oh.
I have experience playing them because it's just like I was just saying just now. Sometimes he'll control my board, whether it's Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, he'll control my board to a certain extent. So not only do I have to get out of the checkmate, recover from the disturbance that he did to my board or hand or whatever, but the moment I get out of those two areas, I have to start playing the game again. Now do I have enough resources to start playing the game? Do I have the necessary stuff to not only get back into the game, but conduct my own playstyle once more? If I get disturbed too much, even if I get out of that hole he put me in, I'm out of the game. I don't have any resources left to play. I can't really do anything else. At this point, he doesn't have to control me anymore. His control's done. No matter what I do, I can't fight back.
Fair enough. So, Lily.
Yes.
What's up, Toph?
What do you think about deck building? Like, are you more so an idea?
Honestly, out of everybody here, I am the most rookie deck builder.
Okay, I mean you don't put yourself down that far, but all right.
No, I'm just saying that. I'm saying that right off the bat. So
Okay.
for me, I typically do a lot more research into things, as well as for me, what I find easiest is archetype building.
Okay.
So for instance, more recently with Digimon, I did armors as like my first big thing. Started with the skeleton provided to me by John, twisted it to make it my own.
Okay.
Mirage Gal was my most recent deck.
Okay.
Still working on that one. That one is a bit of a work in progress. I'm still trying to find what works for me, but I have it mostly ironed out. As a rookie deck builder, I do think it's important to do a lot more research into the cards and possibilities you could possibly throw into your deck and make it work for you. That's the big key thing. Make it work for you.
Yep.
You can net deck all you want, but if you copy a pro player, it's not going to work for you.
Oh, you put up a very good statement.
I was thinking about the same thing just now.
That's so true. That is
Yep.
so true. They said that actually in a lot of League of Legends trading videos. League of Legends, because that's a game that's really into esports. League of Legends, this community. I'm sure all of you guys have heard it. If you're on listening to this pod, I'm sure you guys heard League of Legends. You may not like it, you may hate it, and some of them are toxic. All right, but that what she just said is something that's really relevant within the community when they want to go pro. It's like, don't look at these runes and these things as if something you can do, because they can do that through experience. They experience the gameplay, they experience these battles, and that's what they chose to put those cards inside of there. Wow, here goes someone, and yeah, you can use it as a skeleton, but don't make it seem like this is the all and be all.
Exactly.
Because you're not that same person.
No.
And
You're not the same thought process.
Yeah, same. Because it makes some things you may be like, man, that didn't work out for me. This deck's supposed to be top tier. I'm like, well, yeah, it's for them.
Okay. Good example. And Tom and I actually both built a Mastamon deck at one point.
Mm-hmm.
My deck was so different from his, it wasn't even funny.
Okay, go on.
So, for instance, I was doing like low budget
Better not laugh.
Mastamon. I was doing like a low budget Mastamon deck. And I found out the hard way I suck at DNA decks.
Okay.
Put the deck in Tom's hands, he altered it to fit him, he rocked the deck. I just wasn't any good at it. Vice versa, armor situation.
Mm-hmm.
He was working on the yellow side of armor, I was working on the blue side of armor. He couldn't find a way to pilot it. I'm over here wrecking people's shit with it.
Word. All right.
It's just the way people think and the way the differences are between players.
That's very fun. So I want to dive further into that. So you because we kind of did multiple things. Like, okay, some people start with idea. Some people have an identity. You're more so the archetype. So you like having a manual in front of you and then kind of rewriting the manual to fit for yourself.
Yes.
Right? So do you find it difficult sometimes to find a deck that caters to you in the current set meta? But I know in some card games, there are card games that move exceptionally fast.
That is actually a very difficult thing. Yes.
So it does happen to you?
It has happened actually with Mirage Gal.
Okay. Okay.
And prior to Mirage Gal, because I was working on Aegis-Dramon, it took me forever to find a way to make Aegis-Dramon even work a little bit. Because it just, for some reason, it wasn't clicking.
Mm.
I was building the archetype of the fish, the sea animals, and there was just, I couldn't find a way to make it work. And I got mad and frustrated, and I said, I don't like this deck. Come back to it later after I've done a little bit more research. Okay, I think I can make it work. It's the steps you take and the order you take them as to how the deck will function and flow.
This is very interesting. The reason I asked this question is because archetypes, from a development point of view, are there to really guide players that are kind of more so beginner or intermediate into the game, and it helps it almost with kids,
Definitely.
Because it makes it, this card goes with this card, they look alike, they add it together, and it makes it easier for them. But at the same time, let's say as a competitive player, you have an archetype that you really enjoyed. Now the archetype is phased out. It's not getting support. Yep, it's getting phased out. If you're an archetype player and you have now, I have to excel myself to a new meta, but you look at these list of archetypes and like none of them vibe with me. Now your joy of the game is starting to get affected. It's like, I'm not really good at building ideas.
Yeah.
The archetype, I don't enjoy any of these archetypes. Can I really enjoy the game right now in this set? And it's a real thing.
It is. And I've been having that issue for a while.
Because we can't just all say that we can have one main archetype for the entire time.
No, everything changes.
The company doesn't support the same archetype back to back to back to back to back.
And this is a slight tangent in terms of like, and we can talk on another podcast, which I think is a really good topic. When it comes to the speed companies release sets in, some people feel like they're too fast.
I was just about to
phased
say
out.
that
Yep.
because
Yep.
when it comes to Lily, she says she's an archetype player,
Mhm.
and it sometimes takes her a while to, I'm gonna say, master her thought process when it comes to building the deck, and then putting that thought process into action, and then she starts seeing results because there's the thoughts, there's the building, and then there's results. And once she finds those results, and she's really happy with and content with it, she's like, yes, it works. I've been getting wins.
And then things change.
And then things change. The
Next set
set
drops.
releases the next week. The set releases the week after. And now, in order to either keep up, she either has to, hopefully the set that gets released has support for her color, or there's previous support that'll help her change so she can match the meta with her current deck. But if the set that gets released is too powerful and too impactful, she has to pivot to whatever's in that new set.
Yep,
Which is,
exactly.
if there's an archetype, she has to relearn the strategy, because the thing with archetypes is that they are identities. They can match your identities, but sometimes archetypes don't have an identity that matches you. And when it comes to an idea, it can be away from your
all these archetypes, all these
archetypes are names. They're not strategies.
Yeah.
Now the archetype's name can have a strategy that goes with it, but sometimes the archetype's name can pivot.
And this is so important because like this is definitely a thing. And again, we'll talk more about how companies sometimes go against competitive players who identify with archetypes, because to glance over on a small tangent, some people feel as if, for example, I've come to the community, is like Bandai has a very strong tendency to release things too fast and then power creep things out. You know, they have a very strong tendency to do that. Versus like more smaller companies like Gate Roller is like, okay, things from set one is still very relevant. Like even at the tournament yesterday, I saw things from set one that was like, what the heck? I thought you were done here, you know? So it's a small talk. We'll talk about another podcast.
Yeah, actually, to bounce on that one, that was a pretty good one. Not trying to take too much time for you, and you, Lily. But that also is a good point. When it comes to deck building, also look at the trading card game that you're playing in. Because even though the tournament scene itself can be competitive, let's look at Pokemon, for example. How they rotate sets and introduce sets, to me, I think is decent. It's not too soon. It's not too late. You know, it's decent. Not only that, from John was a judge, and he played highly competitive in there. They have rotating sets, so it keeps it decently healthy in a certain way. I think when you look at certain games, let's look at Bandai. Even though I think Bandai says they don't want any, they're not too competitive, but when you look at Bandai, majority of Bandai's games are in a high competitive mark.
Yep.
Like they're catered to be played by, I'm gonna say, an older group. Even though, let's look at Digimon. Even though Digimon, when we were growing up as kids, but how the game is been catered to and how the game's mechanics are is for an older audience. Now it can be played just like Battle Spirits can be played by a younger group. They all can be played by a younger group. When you look at the game mechanics like Battle Spirits, this is for an older group who are mechanically, heightened to play card games, at a certain level. So I think that right there also takes into account of deck building. When sets get released, higher skill levels, earlier sets get released, players of a higher skill level can change themselves up when sets get released. For me, for an example, when I don't mind how sets get released as long as I know when and how much time I have, because then I can start preparing myself, whether it's proxies, knowledge, knowing what, like I was saying earlier, how I build decks. If I know BattleCore Greymont's coming out, BattleCore Greymont X, another BattleCore Greymont X is coming out two months from now. The skill gets released during leaks. Let me start looking back prior to other sets to see what's relevant to BattleCore Greymont. His skills are a little bit more defensive. Let me look back to more defensive cards that help me protect him while he's on the board. Let's look at any inheritables that can increase his power because his DP is kind of low. That's the process that I would take. That's some processes other players may take. Some players don't have to do my process. They just wait for the set to get released. They saw the leaks. The moment the set comes out, they're already skillful enough to build the deck and just start flying with it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% at that point, because it's just. So I have a question. on the topic with archetypes because I feel like archetypes is the most common thing among all card games that kind of solidifies some things. So I think when it comes to archetypes, it's the most common thing. As I said, Yu-Gi-Oh is very notorious for this. All right. So as a person you played Yu-Gi-Oh, you played. Yu-Gi-Oh.
I'm a Lunalight player. Yes.
OTK beat down. So you played Cardfight Vanguard. You played
Yes.
Yu-Gi-Oh. Cardfight Vanguard was very archetype based. You know,
Yes.
they just recently merged.
Nightmare
clans
Dolls.
together. Yeah.
Yes.
And they even had things within the clans, right? And all that's card. And also, Tom, at this point, you have to chime in, my dude. Let's quick question actually. What do you identify with?
I am actually a combo player. I see a combo for a potential deck,
Okay.
and I build around that.
Okay.
Where it would be in Battle Spirits, Baculus, Curse Dragon.
Okay.
For Digimon, I came up with a cool concept with Venusmon with the 4 Great Dragons to constantly keep that minus 1k on the whole board. Minus 1 security on the whole board.
The blanket
And even with Vanguard, you guys were talking about not being able to use some old cards. I came up with a strategy in the G era for Vanguard with Loris, Vita, and Blazer Idols, which originally came out in the second set of Vanguard. And Blazer Idols had a very simple skill. Plus, on play, plus 2k to one of your guys.
Okay.
And I played it with Vita with Loris. Vita would bounce back in my hand. I'd call Blazer Idols behind the Loris. Loris would go into Harmony, get plus 5k. Blazer Idols would give plus 2k to the Loris on your opponent's turn. So it would be an 18k Vanguard every single turn.
For our Cardfight Vanguard people, remember that combo. Just saying.
That's an old combo.
That
That's
is
an
a
old.
very old.
Hey,
that
some
was
people
like
stay
G-era
play
combo.
premium. You know, maybe some people like me, like old people, like me. I want to play some good old great nature. You know, maybe I want to play some old cards. You know, you never know.
But yeah, I always look when I see a cool combo. That's what I want to build my deck around.
You sound like an idea guy. Like you sound like you look at cards. Oh, I like this idea. I like this combo, and you build around that. Is that wrong?
I think he's kind of like a hybrid.
Yeah, like
because he's not saying. So like we're ideas, but our ideas can shift every set or every deck. He's saying he's a combo player, but he also has an identity. Like he's saying, I like combo decks that combo like I combo destruction or combo with summons or combo with other drawing skills. But he's also saying this is what I always play, which is also an identity.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be a long combo. I normally like a 2 to 3 piece combo, because that way you don't have to worry too much about what cards. You don't have to worry about those 2 or those 3 cards.
So I have a question, and to go back, what I was going to ask Lily, because it sounds like to me, we have identities, archetypes, and ideas. Right? Is that safe to say? These 2 categories.
We also have net deckers. We didn't get on that one, but you know,
I think we had a podcast about net decking before in previous.
Yeah, way back. We don't have to get too deep into it, but net decking is a way of building decks because it's like a blueprint. As how she was saying earlier, how she got a show from him, and then she kind of went for it. Started building it. How some people build decks is they will net deck. And then kind of just
is there a different term? Because like when we usually use net deck, and that's to be offended, it sounds like more like a derogatory term. You know, like is there a different term?
Net decker.
Right now, that's the most famous term.
The only reason I see it as like you see it on the net and you copy it.
Yeah, you see like you go, hey, I want to play this deck.
The deck, but we just take the out.
I mean,
net deck.
I mean, it is better than saying you're a copy paster.
I mean, oh wow, all right.
I like that copy paster.
So at this point, I think there's gonna be a part 2 to this podcast because it's just so much to go into. So I have a question because I feel like this doesn't really apply to the idea of people, more so the identity and archetypes. As I said before, games have a very strong tendency to build archetypes because it makes it easier for a player to come into the game or a player to go into just kind of figure out where they want to belong. So, in that case, as a people who have an identity, what do you guys do first to kind of make sure you're still relevant in a competitive TCG? Like, if there's something that you can't really identify with, or that your identity is not really potent right now, what do you do?
The most important thing for an identity player like myself is to always look forward at least 2-3 sets. Because these TCGs aren't just only released here. They're released in Japan first, usually. Overseas first. NA tends to get a lot of card games last. So the best thing that we can do is stay ahead of the game by looking at what's more to come and planning, see, hey, this deck that I have right now, I see this removal card, how can I fit this into this current deck? Or if I need to build another deck with the cards in the set. And usually it comes to the point where power creep hits you and you have to just play what's in set 10, 11, 12. Best example is right now in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you're not playing Cashetiras and locking your opponent's zones, you're not really winning anything. So if you're not, like, Yu-Gi-Oh's the prime example of, hey, use this archetype or you're locked out of competitive.
Okay. We're definitely going to need a part 2. So, guys, we're essentially out of time, but we have so much more to talk about in this discussion. It's such a good topic. So, thank you for coming again to our podcast again. Comment down below. Tell us what kind you can identify with. Are you idea, identity, or archetype? Or maybe, copy paster,
Oh, that.
What do you want to
I
know?
established a term in
Or none of the above.
You have something new. You have something new. You're so right, John. You said something new.
I made a term and I regret it.
It's cool. It happened. So, as battle spirits say, let the cores decide your fate. As we like to say, let the battles decide your champion. Thanks again for coming by. This is Isaac, signing out.